Lily and Jack Sullivan. On the morning of May 2, 2025, in a rural property on Gairloch Road in Lansdowne Station, Pictou County, Nova Scotia, two young children were heard laughing on the swings outside their home. Their stepfather's mother, Janie Mackenzie, who lived in a separate dwelling on the property, said she briefly heard them playing before falling back asleep around 8:50 a.m. By the time anyone went looking for them, the swings were empty. The yard was empty. The thick Nova Scotia forest surrounding the property offered nothing. 11 months later, it still has not. Lily Sullivan, born March 2019, was 6 years old. Indigenous from Sipeknekatik First Nation, she was last seen wearing a pink sweater, pink pants, and pink boots. Some reports add a cream corduroy backpack with strawberries. Her mother described her as girly, someone who loved towels and sparkles. She was a student at Salt Springs Elementary. Jack Sullivan, born October 29, 2020, was 4 at the time and turned 5 that October. He was last seen in blue dinosaur boots, carrying a blanket and a toy dinosaur. Adventurous and verbal, he attended the same school in the pre-primary program. Both children were possibly on the autism spectrum, though undiagnosed according to their mother. Their mother, Malahia Brooks Murray, was in her early 20s and had moved to Lansdowne in August 2023. Her common-law partner, Daniel Robert Martell, 34, was the children's stepfather. Their biological father, Cody Sullivan, had not seen the children in 3 years and was cleared by RCMP early on May 3rd. A younger half-sibling, approximately 1-year-old, was home with the parents at the time. The last confirmed independent sighting of the family was on Dollarama surveillance in New Glasgow at 2:25 p.m. on May 1st. On the morning of May 2nd, the parents said they were in the bedroom with the baby. Lily entered the room several times. Jack was heard in the kitchen. Then at some point, neither child could be heard anymore. The parents searched outside. Martell later claimed he heard a scream in the forest, drowned out by a helicopter. But RCMP helicopters had not yet been dispatched at that time, raising questions about what he actually heard and when. Brooks Murray called 911 at 10:01 a.m. No Amber Alert was ever issued. RCMP said the criteria, which require evidence of abduction and a vehicle or suspect description, were not met. The decision drew intense public criticism. At the peak of the search, up to 160 searchers were deployed with dogs, drones, and helicopters. By February 2026, roughly 8.5 square kilometers had been grid searched by 1,700 crew over 12,000 hours. How do two children vanish from their own yard in broad daylight and leave almost no trace in the largest search effort Nova Scotia has ever mounted? Lily's pink LOL doll blanket was found hanging in a tree about 1 kilometer from the home by relatives around 4 p.m. on May 2nd. A torn piece of the same blanket was seized from the home's garbage. Martell said he had used it as a draft stopper. A child-sized boot print on a pipeline trail matched Lily's size 11 boots. In late September, 2 cadaver dogs covered 40 kilometers across the property. Neither alerted. Both parents passed initial polygraphs in May 2025. A second round in November through December focused specifically on the blanket and the family member who found it. A third round was confirmed in March 2026. In January 2026, unsealed court documents revealed Brooks Murray had told police Martell was physically abusive. A claim Martell denied, and that has not been tested in court. On January 26th, Martel was arrested and charged with assault and forcible confinement involving an adult complainant. RCMP emphasized these charges are completely unrelated to the missing children. As of January 15, 2026, RCMP Staff Sergeant Rob McCammon stated, "I wouldn't say anybody's a suspect. Both children remain missing. Over 1,050 tips have been received and 75 interviews conducted. McCammon has said the case is not going to be a cold case. A $150,000 reward from the Nova Scotia government remains active. All scenarios remain open. Misadventure in the woods, stranger abduction, or foul play by someone known. A pink blanket in a tree, a boot print on a trail, and 2 children gone for 11 months without a single answer. But the next case has been waiting for 25 years, and the note left behind has never been explained." Tionda and Diamond Bradley. On the morning of July 6, 2001, a 10-year-old girl and her 3-year-old sister were home alone in their apartment at the Lake Grove Village complex on the 3500 block of South Lake Park Avenue on the south side of Chicago. Their mother had left for a part-time food prep shift at Robert Taylor Park before 6 a.m. She called the apartment 3 times between 8 and 9 that morning. Nobody answered. When she returned around noon, the door was locked, the apartment was empty, and a handwritten note was sitting on the back of the couch. It said the girls had gone to Doolittle Elementary and Lake Meadows Shopping Center. She searched the area with family members for several hours before calling police at 6:30 p.m. Neither girl has been seen since. Tionda Z. Bradley, born January 20th, 1991, was 10 years old, 4'2", with a quarter-sized burn scar on her left forearm. Diamond Yvette Bradley, born November 25th, 1997, was 3, with black hair braided in 4 ponytails with violet holders. Their mother, Tracy Bradley, was a single parent. 2 older siblings, Rita and Victoria, were at their grandmother's. Diamond's biological father was confirmed as George Washington. What was not publicly known for 22 years was that Tracy was not home the night before the disappearance. She had stayed overnight with George Washington, who drove her to work early that morning. The girls were presumed asleep when she left, but nobody confirmed they were still in the apartment at that point. That admission did not surface publicly until the 2023 Investigation Discovery 2-hour special, contradicting Tracy's statements for over 2 decades and extending the window of time the girls were unsupervised. The handwritten note was the only physical evidence recovered from the apartment. FBI handwriting analysts reportedly determined it was written in a child's hand. But the content, a trip to the school and shopping center, did not match any known activity pattern for Tionda. There were no signs of forced entry. Around 8:30 a.m., Tionda allegedly left a voicemail on the home phone asking whether to let George in at the door. The voicemail was referenced publicly in 2007 by Nancy Grace, but reportedly later vanished from the recording and does not appear in police records. No explanation has ever been given for how a recorded voicemail simply disappeared. Why did Tracy search for 6 hours after finding the note before calling the police? And what happened to the voicemail? The investigation became one of the largest in Chicago history at the time. Hundreds of officers, federal agents, and volunteers were deployed. Homes of nearly 100 registered offenders were checked. Doolittle Elementary, Lake Meadows Shopping Center, abandoned factories, sewers, and family members' homes, including a great-grandfather's property in Wisconsin, were all searched. No trace of either girl was found anywhere. George Washington, Diamond's biological father, became the most scrutinized person of interest. Witnesses said he was seen burning items in his garage and buying trash bags in the days after the disappearance. Hairs found in his trunk matched Bradley family DNA, but could not be differentiated between the girls and their mother. He passed a polygraph and was never charged. He and Tracy later had a son together in 2003, and Washington gained custody of the boy. Tracy stopped cooperating with investigators at multiple points and never took a polygraph. In March 2002, she was handcuffed and taken to a precinct after shoving a police officer during questioning. Her attorney halted the interview. Retired CPD Detective Pamela Childs has publicly said she believes somebody had the girls from the very beginning, citing the absence of forced entry and the circumstances of the note. Over the years, at least 12 women have falsely impersonated the sisters, including a Texas woman in May 2023 whose claim was disproven by FBI DNA testing. Each hoax reopens the wound for the family. The case remains open and active, jointly investigated by CPD and the FBI. FBI Special Agent Siobhan Johnson has described it as one of the longest continuous FBI searches nationwide. A reward of up to $80,000 is current. Great Aunt Shalia Bradley Smith continues to lead family advocacy from Minnesota, along with sisters Rita and Victoria. The 25-year anniversary vigil is expected July 6, 2026. A major coverage milestone, a handwritten note, a voicemail that vanished, and 25 years without a single confirmed sighting. But in the next case, 2 sisters disappeared from inside their own home in under 20 minutes. And the family dog was found locked in a room it never went into on its own. Annette and Mylette Anderson. On the evening of August 1st, 1974, 2 sisters were left home alone in the Ocean Way neighborhood of Jacksonville, Florida, a quiet residential area also known as Pumpkin Hill. Their mother, Elizabeth, and older sister, Donna, had left around 6 p.m. to care for a sick relative, expecting to be gone a short time. Their father, Jack Layton Anderson, a commercial fisherman, was supposed to be home but had been delayed at work by a faulty boat motor. He called the house at 7 p.m. and spoke to the older of the 2 girls. She sounded normal. He heard the family dog barking in the background. She said it was barking at birds. He told her he would be home soon. 20 minutes later, at approximately 7:20 p.m., Jack called again. The phone rang and rang. Nobody picked up. When he arrived at the house, the doors were shut but unlocked. No lights were on. The house was completely empty, and the family dog, which normally roamed freely throughout the home, was shut inside a back bedroom, a room the dog never entered on its own and had no reason to be in. Someone had put it there. Lillian Annette Anderson was 11 years old, white, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Mylette Josephine Anderson, born October 18, 1967, was 6, also blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Both were students at Louis Sheffield Elementary School. They were described as well-behaved children who would not have left the house voluntarily with a stranger. Nothing of value was taken from the home. There were no signs of forced entry, no indication of a struggle, and no damage to any door or window. The only thing missing was Mylette's favorite baby doll, the one she carried everywhere. That detail has haunted investigators for 50 years. If the girls left on their own, why would a 6-year-old grab her doll, but nothing else? And if someone took them, why would they wait while a child retrieved a toy? Neighbors reported seeing a white car in the driveway between 6 and 7 p.m. that evening. The car did not belong to the Anderson family and had never been seen at the property before. Nobody could describe the driver, provide a license plate number, or say with certainty when it arrived or departed. Beyond the white car, there was nothing. No screams heard. No unusual activity reported. No witnesses who saw the girls leave the property on foot or in a vehicle. How did two children disappear from inside a house in under 20 minutes, with the family dog deliberately locked in a room it would never enter on its own, and leave behind nothing but a missing baby doll? The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office led the investigation, coordinating with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. No physical evidence was recovered from the home or surrounding area. No leads on the white car were ever developed, despite extensive canvassing of the neighborhood. The case went cold quickly in an era before widespread surveillance cameras, DNA databases, or digital forensic tools. One name has loomed over the investigation for decades. Paul John Knowles, known as the Casanova Killer, was active in Jacksonville in 1974 and was killed by police later that year. In taped confessions, Knowles claimed to have taken and buried two girls matching the Anderson sisters near Commonwealth Avenue. Jack Anderson filed a wrongful death suit against Knowles' estate. Authorities now believe the confession was likely false, as Knowles was known to inflate his victim count. The case may also sit within a disturbing cluster of 1974 Jacksonville disappearances of young girls that occurred within months of each other. Jean-Marie Schoen went missing on July 21, 1974, and was never found. Virginia Suzanne Helm disappeared on September 27th and was found deceased. Rebecca Ann Green vanished on October 12th, and her skeletal remains were recovered 3 years later. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office does not officially connect these cases, but the concentration of disappearances in a single city within a few-month window has drawn attention from researchers and cold case advocates for decades. Elizabeth Anderson has publicly said she does not believe her daughters are alive. But without remains, she said, they will never die. No one has ever been charged. No remains have been recovered. No confirmed sighting has ever been reported over 50 years later, the white car in the driveway and the dog locked in the wrong bedroom remain the only clues this case has ever produced. A missing baby doll, a dog in the wrong room, and a 20-minute window that has never been explained. But in the next case, two 15-year-old twins vanished from a gas station in broad daylight, and the police misspelled their names on the report and then closed the case within a year. Danette and Jeanette Millbrook. On the afternoon of March 18, 1990, two 15-year-old fraternal twins walked to a gas station in Augusta, Georgia, to buy chips and drinks. They had just come from Sunday church and lunch, and were on their way to their godfather's house to pick up about $20 in bus fare. They stopped at the Pump and Shop gas station on the corner of 12th Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, now known as Augusta Mart, around 4:30 p.m. Earlier that same day, they had told their mothers something troubling. A man in a white van had been following them. The clerk at the store saw a vehicle outside but could not describe it in any useful detail. The twins walked out of that gas station and were never seen again. Danette Latonia Millbrook and Jeanette Latrice Millbrook, born April 7, 1974, were black fraternal twins and ninth graders at Lucy C. Laney High School in Augusta. Their mother was Mary Louise Sturgis. Their father, John Millbrook, had a criminal record including involvement in the local trade. He died in 2021 with dementia, having never publicly pressed for an investigation into his own daughter's disappearance. Their younger sister, Shanta Sturgis, was 12 at the time. She has spent over 35 years of her life fighting for answers that the system never tried to provide. What happened after the twins were reported missing is one of the most documented failures in American missing persons history. Their mother was told to wait 24 hours before filing a report. When the report was finally taken, the initial investigator misspelled both of their names and used incorrect birth dates on the official paperwork. The case was immediately classified as runaways, with no evidence to support that conclusion and no investigation to determine whether it was accurate. The case was closed entirely in 1991, barely a year after 2 children vanished. Then it got worse. In 1993, the twins' names were removed from the National Missing Persons Registry after law enforcement falsely reported them as found. They had not been found. Nobody had verified the claim. The original investigative records were later lost entirely. Over the years, the family was given a series of false explanations for what had happened to their girls, including being told they had been adopted out of foster care. None of it was true. How did 2 teenagers get reported missing, misspelled on the report, classified as runaways without evidence, removed from the national database because someone said they were found when they were not, and then have their entire case file lost? 2 suspects emerged over the decades, but neither was ever charged. Joseph Patrick Washington, a suspected area serial offender targeting young black women, had ties to the twins' father's circle. He died in prison in '99 without ever being questioned about Danette and Jeanette. Ernest Vaughns, through his daughter, told podcasters he saw the twins at John Milbrook's apartment, claiming one was harmed and the other injured intervening. And that remains might be at the Mary Brothers brickyard. Investigators concluded he was describing a different case. Shanta said Vaughns was later told to recant. The case was reopened in 2013 by newly elected Richmond County Sheriff Richard Roundtree after years of relentless advocacy by Shanta Sturgis. In 2017, the Fall Line podcast, Season 1 by Laura Norton and Brooke Hargrove, brought the case to national true crime audiences for the first time. The 2019 Oxygen Network special expanded the coverage further. In 2022, a Crime Junkie episode and a $39,000 contribution from Audio Chuck raised the reward to a peak of $50,000. In November 2025, a private investigator contacted Shanta with a lead that could change everything. A Jane Doe found in Louisiana in 1993 may match Jeanette. DNA comparison is currently underway, coordinated between the Jefferson Parish Coroner's Office and Richmond County. Results are expected 6 to 9 months from submission. On March 18, 2026, the 36-year anniversary, the new Richmond County Sheriff, Eugene Brantley, pledged a dedicated cold case unit for the twins' case. In April 2026, the family held a balloon release at Augusta Mart, the former Pump End shop, for the twins' 52nd birthday. The twins' information remains incorrect on the Richmond County Sheriff's Office missing persons page to this day. Names misspelled on the report, a case closed in 1 year, records lost, names removed from the national database, and now DNA results pending that could finally provide an answer after 36 years. But in the next case, a mother and 3 children vanished from Mississippi in the middle of the night. And the car she supposedly drove away in was later found sitting on her own property. Cameron, Kyle, and Rachel Anderson. On or around April 11th, 2000, a mother and her 3 youngest children disappeared from Fulton, Mississippi, a small town in Itawamba County. Their father, Jeff Anderson, who lived in Rising Sun, Indiana, had been calling regularly to speak with his kids under a Saturday call arrangement. One day, the calls simply stopped being answered. When Jeff finally got through to the household, a roommate identified only as Jones told him that his ex-wife Leslie had left in the middle of the night with a truck driver, taking the 3 youngest children with her and leaving 2 older children behind. The vehicle she was supposed to have driven away in, a brown 1981 Chevrolet Caprice station wagon with Mississippi plates, was later found abandoned on the family's own property. Leslie had not gone anywhere in that car, and nobody has heard from any of them in 26 years. Rachel Marie Anderson, born May 9, 1986, was 13 years old. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, and a distinctive strawberry birthmark on the left side of her face. Cameron Jeffrey C.J. Anderson, born March 4, 1988, was 12, with blonde hair, blue eyes, and glasses. Kyle Nicholas James Anderson, born December 11, 1990, was 9, with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a scar on his upper lip. All 3 were quiet, well-liked children who had given no indication they were about to leave home permanently. Their mother, Leslie Allen Anderson, had married Jeff in Wisconsin in 1985. Jeff legally adopted Leslie's 3 older children from a prior relationship. Chris, Stephanie, and Greg, the couple divorced in 1997, and Leslie moved to Itawamba County, Mississippi, with all 6 children. She later relocated to Fulton with Rachel, Cameron, Kyle, and the older siblings, Stephanie and Greg. The family used school records to narrow the window. Rachel last attended April 5th, Kyle April 7th, Cameron April 10th. By the 11th, none were in school. No medical or school record requests were made afterward. No credit activity under Leslie's name. No employment records. No tax filings. 4 people left no trace of any kind after April 2000. The roommate's account of a truck driver has never been corroborated. No truck driver was ever identified, and the brown Caprice, the family's only vehicle, was found months later on the property. If Leslie left voluntarily, she left without her car, without money, and without a trace. The case was reclassified from family abduction to endangered missing. The Rising Sun Police Department and Ohio County Sheriff's Office in Indiana have led the investigation, with Mississippi agencies handling the Fulton side. No named suspect has ever been publicly identified. No DNA breakthroughs have occurred. No confirmed sightings of any of the 4 missing people have ever been reported. Jeff Anderson and his sister Trenna Anderson Jossar continue to advocate publicly for answers, refusing to let the case disappear the way their family did. In 2022, the family used school attendance records to establish the timeline more precisely than investigators had previously managed, proving that the 3 children disappeared over a staggered period of days rather than all at once, which directly challenges the truck driver story. If all 4 left together in the middle of the night, why did each child stop attending school on a different day? The case has been featured on the Mississippi Project and in regional news coverage. The Facebook page, Missing Anderson Family, continues to share updates and appeal for information from anyone who may have known the family in Fulton during that spring. As of April 2026, the case remains open and unresolved. No named suspect has ever been publicly identified. No DNA breakthroughs have occurred. No confirmed sightings of Leslie, Rachel, Cameron, or Kyle have been reported anywhere in the world in 26 years. A mother and 3 children vanished from a small Mississippi town. Their car never left the property. Their names have never surfaced in any system, and the only person who claims to know how they left has never been able to prove a truck driver ever existed. A car abandoned on its own property. A roommate's story that has never been verified. And 4 people gone without a trace for 26 years. But the next case is the oldest on this list, 60 years and counting, and an entire nation has been searching for answers ever since. If you've made it this far and enjoy deep dives into the most shocking criminal cases, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to press the bell icon. A car abandoned on its own property, a roommate's story that has never been verified, and 4 people gone without a trace for 26 years. But the next case is the oldest on this list, 60 years and counting, and an entire nation has been searching for answers ever since. Beaumont children. On Wednesday, January 26, 1966, Australia Day, 3 children caught a bus from Somerton Park to Glenelg Beach in Adelaide, South Australia. Their mother Nancy had given them 6 shillings and 6 pence, enough for bus fare and lunch. She expected them home on the noon bus. They missed it. They missed the 2 p.m. bus. By late afternoon, their father Jim had driven to the beach and found nothing. By early evening, their parents had walked into Glenelg Police Station. The children were never found. It has been 60 years. Both parents died without ever knowing what happened to their children. Jane Nartare Beaumont, born September 10, 1956, was 9 years old. Shy and responsible, she was last seen in a pink bathing suit under green shorts and tartan canvas sand shoes. She carried a green bag with 3 towels, a white purse, and a paperback of Little Women. Arna Kathleen Beaumont, born November 11, 1958, was 7. Gregarious and talkative, she wore a red and white striped one-piece and tan shorts. Grant Ellis Beaumont, born July 12, 1961, was 4. He wore green cotton shorts over striped swimming trunks and red leather sandals, with no shirt. Their parents were Jim Beaumont, a former serviceman and traveling linen salesman, and Nancy Beaumont. They lived at 109 Harding Street, Somerton Park. That morning at Collie Reserve, at least 5 witnesses saw the 3 children with a tall, thin-faced man. Fair to light brown hair, sun-tanned, athletic, mid-30s, approximately 185 centimeters, wearing navy blue swim trunks. The children appeared relaxed and laughing, which was out of character for the normally shy Jane. The man was seen drying the children with towels and helping Jane get dressed. Between 11:15 and noon, Jane entered Wenzel's Bakery on Mosley Street and purchased pasties and a meat pie using a £1 note, far more money than Nancy had given them. The shopkeeper knew the children by sight and noted they had never bought a meat pie before. Around 12:15, the man and the 3 children were seen walking away from the beach together. The family postman reported seeing the children walking alone on Jetty Road, holding hands and laughing around 2:55 p.m., though he later changed his timing to morning, creating a lasting ambiguity in the timeline. Who gave a 9-year-old girl a £1 note? And how did 3 children go from laughing on the beach to vanishing completely within hours? The search became one of the largest manhunts in Australian history. In November 1966, Dutch clairvoyant Gerard Croiset arrived and claimed the children were buried beneath a brick kiln. A warehouse was excavated. Nothing was found. Hoax letters from Dandenong, Victoria, in 1968 lured the parents to a fake meeting. The writer was identified decades later as a man who had written them as a teenage prank. Over the decades, multiple suspects have been investigated. The most credible is Harry Phipps, a wealthy factory owner who lived approximately 190 meters from Collie Reserve. Named publicly by his son, Hayden, in a 2013 book, Phipps was known to hand out £1 notes to children, which would explain the bakery purchase. He closely resembled the police identikit, and former youths claimed he paid them to dig a large hole at his Castalloy factory yard the same weekend the children vanished. 3 separate excavations at the Castalloy site in 2013, 2018, and February 2025 found nothing. Phipps died in 2004. Convicted offender Bevan Spencer von Einem, who resembled the identikit and frequented Glenelg, remains a person of interest, but was only approximately 19 to 20 in January 1966. In January 2026, investigator Brian Littley named Bill Cotton as a new person of interest, a man with a prior conviction. A police said Cotton was interviewed in '66 and nothing indicated involvement. The claim remains unverified. In March 2025, a fragment described as a juvenile-sized pelvic bone with embedded glass was recovered at a separate site in Yatina. Forensic testing is not complete as of April 2026. Nancy Beaumont died in September 2019 at 92. Jim Beaumont died in April 2023 at 97. Neither parent ever learned what happened. A $1 million South Australian government reward remains active. The case remains open after 60 years. 60 years. 3 digs at the same factory, both parents gone. And a £1 note from a stranger that has never been explained. But in the next case, the suspect is still believed to be alive. And the last person who saw the children was their own stepfather. Monica and Michael Bennett. On the evening of June 21st, 1989, 2 teenagers were taken by their stepfather to a nearly empty apartment at the Heritage Apartments complex on the 5700 block of Altima Avenue in Brunswick, Georgia. He told their biological mothers he needed help packing. By 8:30 p.m., both children had walked up a hill and out of sight. They were never seen again. The stepfather's account of what happened that evening contradicts every other witness, and neither child's name, birth certificate, or social security number has been used in the 36 years since. Monica Renita Bennett, born October 27, 1973, was 15 years old. Black, 5'5", 130 pounds, with pierced ears. Michael Anthony Bennett was 14. Black, with a scar on his left knee. Both were students at Glynn Academy. Their mother was Deborah George. Their stepfather, Robert L. George, was also Michael's biological father. Monica's biological father lived separately. Older sister Shelia Wigfall was pregnant at the time and living with her in-laws. 4 younger half-sisters, Deborah and Robert's daughters, rounded out the family. That afternoon, Robert took a reluctant, crying Michael from his first ex-wife's home, saying he needed help packing an apartment that was nearly empty. He then picked up Monica from her biological father's home. That evening, the children visited their aunt across the courtyard and ate dinner with her. Around 8:30 p.m., the aunt walked them outside and saw Robert standing there. He asked her to call Deborah on a payphone to help him reconcile with her. While Robert was on the phone, Monica and Michael walked up a hill and out of sight. That was the last time anyone other than Robert reported seeing them alive. The police report states Robert called Deborah at 8:30 p.m., saying the children were already missing, contradicting the aunt's account that they had just walked away moments before. Later that night, Robert picked up his younger daughters and drove slowly around the apartment complex without calling the children's names. The younger siblings later reported seeing 2 trash bags by Robert's door and a bed that had been stripped of its sheets. Robert claimed the bags contained the missing children's belongings. Why would a man who says his children just wandered off drive slowly around the complex without calling their names and have 2 trash bags and stripped bed sheets by his front door? Police initially accepted the parents' narrative and classified the case as runaways. Monica was described as having a boyfriend involved in the local trade, and that characterization was used to justify inaction. No meaningful investigation occurred until the early 2000s, when the case was reclassified from runaway to endangered missing. Robert L. George has been the primary suspect in the family's eyes from the beginning. Earlier in 1989, Monica had told Shelia that Robert had been harming her inappropriately. Shelia took her to a guidance counselor and to the police. Deborah dismissed the allegations entirely. Michael reportedly walked in on the situation, which prompted a brief separation between Robert and Deborah. Robert gave 2 inconsistent accounts of the day the children disappeared. Deborah's own mother described him as controlling and prone to intimidation. His car disappeared within days of the disappearance, and its fate is unknown. He and Deborah moved to Alabama shortly after. Neither child left behind their belongings or money. Both simply vanished as if they had never existed. Robert has never been charged. Deborah has not been considered a suspect, but was scrutinized for dismissing the allegations about Robert's conduct. In 2017, the Fall Line podcast Season 2 devoted 4 episodes to the case, bringing it to a national audience for the first time. The case has also been covered by Our Black Girls and Inhuman podcast. No rewards have been offered. No DNA breakthroughs or confirmed sightings have ever been reported. Sister Shelia Wigfall continues advocacy from Georgia. The dominant theory: Robert George killed Monica and Michael inside that apartment on the night of June 21st, disposed of their bodies, and got rid of his car. He is believed to still be alive. 36 years later, no one has been held accountable. Trash bags by the door, stripped bed sheets, a car that vanished, and a stepfather who has never been charged. But in the next case, 2 sisters were placed in the care of a family friend, and within 2 weeks, both had disappeared from his apartment. Josephine and Joyce Cogburn. On October 2, 1983, 2 sisters disappeared from an apartment at 333 East Brook Street in Norman, Oklahoma. They had been living with a longtime family friend for approximately 2 weeks after disciplinary problems at home. The friend reported them missing that same day, saying they were supposed to walk to the library and never came back. All of their belongings were left behind. No classmate or friend ever heard from either girl again. The apartment complex has since been demolished, and the man who was supposed to be looking after them refused to answer questions for the rest of his life. Josephine Yvette "Vet" Cogburn, born April 10, 1967, was 16, white, 5'1", 128 pounds. Brown hair, blue eyes, with pierced ears and a distinctive tattoo. The word "Vete" in script with a swirl underneath on the inside of her foot near her toes. Joyce Irene Cogburn, born May 10, 1968, was 15, white, 5'3", 116 pounds. Strawberry blonde hair, brown eyes, also with pierced ears. They went by Vet and Joyce. Their father had been killed in a March 1968 car accident while their mother was pregnant with Joyce. Their mother was a single parent who worked as a bartender and attended nursing school. Older sister Rosetta Elizabeth Cogburn Ivy, the family's primary advocate for over 40 years, was raised separately by their maternal grandmother. After the father's death, the girls were raised by paternal grandparents. In 1975, their mother remarried but removed the second husband after he was alleged to have acted inappropriately toward the girls. By fall 1983, the girls were having disciplinary problems in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. Their mother signed over temporary custody to a longtime family friend, identified publicly only by the initials BJS, whom she had known approximately 13 years through bartending. BJS took the girls to his Norman apartment. On October 2nd, BJS claimed he was out for the day. The girls were supposed to walk to the library. When he returned, they were gone. He reported them missing that day. Every belonging they had brought with them was still in the apartment. The Norman Police Department initially classified them as runaways, a theory pushed by BJS himself. As years passed without any contact from either girl, police shifted the classification to foul play and eventually to non-family abduction. Why would two sisters voluntarily leave an apartment without taking a single belonging and never contact their mother, their grandmother, or their older sister ever again? In mid-September 1983, approximately 2 weeks before they vanished, Josephine reportedly confided to Rosetta something deeply troubling. Joyce and BJS had been in an inappropriate relationship. But Joyce had recently started seeing a new boyfriend and wanted to end things with BJS. Rosetta's theory, which she has maintained for over 4 decades, is that BJS killed both sisters in a jealous rage when Joyce tried to leave him for someone her own age. BJS refused to speak to the family after the disappearance. He refused a polygraph. He never returned the girls' belongings. He later moved to a property approximately 11 miles from Broken Bow. He was interviewed by police multiple times over the years, but was never officially named as a suspect. He is now deceased, severely limiting any remaining path to resolution. An unnamed new boyfriend of Joyce's has been mentioned as a secondary person of interest, but there has been little follow-up reported. Neither sister's name, social security number, or birth certificate has been used since 1983. Unconfirmed sightings have been reported as far away as Arizona over the years, but none were ever verified. NCMEC released age progressions showing the sisters at ages 43 and 44. In October 2008, the Norman transcript featured the 25th anniversary. NCMEC released age progressions to ages 43 and 44. The apartment at 333 East Brooks has been demolished. No physical evidence from the scene exists. The case remains with Norman police. Rosetta Cogburn Ivy continues to advocate from Broken Bow. The primary suspect is dead. The apartment is gone. And 2 sisters, sent to live with a trusted family friend, have been missing for over 42 years. A family friend who refused every question. An apartment that no longer exists. And 2 sisters who left behind everything they owned. But in the next case, 2 children vanished from an Alaskan cabin in the middle of the night while their mother was at a bar. And a pot of water was still boiling on the stove when she came home. Scott and Amy Fandle. On the night of September 4th, 1978, 2 children were left at their family's cabin on Scout Lake Loop Road, south of Sterling, on the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska, approximately 136 miles south of Anchorage. Their mother and her sister had dropped them off around 10 p.m. and returned to a local bar. When the women came home between 2 and 3 a.m. on September 5th, the cabin lights were off. That was unusual. The children were afraid of the dark and always left the lights on. Their mother and aunt did not check on them. They went to bed. The next afternoon, neighbor children came knocking and asked why Scott and Amy had not been at school. That is when the family realized both children were gone. Scott Curtis Fandle, born January 23, 1965, was 13 years old. Brown hair, blue eyes, 4'11", 74 pounds. He was last seen in a striped t-shirt and jeans. Amy Lee Fandle, born August 25, 1970, was 8. Blonde hair, brown eyes, 4 feet tall, 52 pounds. She was last seen in a sweater, a red and blue vest, and striped jeans. Scott was Amy's half-brother. Amy's biological father was Roger Fandle, who had also helped raise Scott from age 2 and considered him his own son. Their mother was Margaret Fandle. The cabin was remote, surrounded by thick Alaskan forest on the Kenai Peninsula. The front door lock did not work. That evening, the children had briefly visited their next-door neighbors, the Lupton family, before returning home. A passing neighbor saw lights on at the cabin at 11:45 p.m. When Margaret and her sister Kathy Schoenfelder returned from Good Time Charlie's, a Sterling bar and restaurant, between 2 and 3 a.m., the lights were off. They did not check on the children and went to sleep. What they found the next day was deeply unsettling. Evidence of an interrupted late meal was still on the kitchen counter and stove: macaroni, an open can of tomatoes, and a pot of water that was still warm on the burner. Something had stopped the children in the middle of making dinner. Whatever happened occurred after 11:45 p.m., when the lights were still on, and before 2 a.m. when the lights were off. Bullet casings were found outside the cabin, though their age and relevance could not be determined. The cabin itself later burned down, destroying any remaining physical evidence. Who or what interrupted 2 children making dinner in a remote Alaskan cabin in the middle of the night? The Alaska State Troopers led the investigation under case number 78-3303. Roger Fandle, Margaret's estranged husband and Amy's biological father, had left the family and moved to Arizona in January 1978, 8 months before the disappearance. He was considered a suspect, but nothing was ever proven. He is reportedly deceased. 2 carnival workers from the Alaska State Fair, whose black sedan was seen near the cabin, were questioned. They claimed they were simply passing through. Speculation that someone at Good Time Charlie's may have overheard that the children would be home alone that night has never been confirmed. In 1984, retired Alaska State Trooper investigator Chuck Hagan followed a tip about 2 children matching Scott and Amy's descriptions who had moved from Haines, Alaska to Page, Arizona. The lead was never confirmed. The case has been classified as non-family abduction since its reclassification, though no suspect has ever been named publicly. Margaret later moved to Illinois. Both biological fathers are reportedly deceased. The case has been extensively covered by the Murder and Mystery in the Last Frontier podcast by Robin Bearfield and by The Trail Went Cold. Legacy coverage includes Sheila Toomey's Still Missing retrospective in the Anchorage Daily News on the 10th anniversary in September 1988. As of April 2026, the case remains with Alaska State Troopers and is unsolved after over 47 years. No publicly reported breakthroughs have occurred. The cabin is gone. The stove is gone. But somewhere in the Alaskan wilderness or beyond, the answer to what happened between 11:45 p.m. and 2 a.m. on that September night is still waiting. A pot of water on the stove, lights switched off in a cabin where the children feared the dark, and 47 years of silence. But the final case on this list may hold the most heartbreaking clue of all. Because in this one, the leading theory is that it was simply an accident. And the car they were riding in may still be sitting at the bottom of a reservoir. Julie and Timothy Guthrie. On Saturday, February 5th, 1977, a young mother drove from her mother's home in White Plains, New York, to pick up her two small children from their father's house on Grandview Avenue in Katona, about 30 miles north. It was a snowy day during one of the harshest winters in recent memory. The father buckled the children into the back seat of her white 1974 Ford Maverick, waved goodbye, and watched them drive away. They never arrived back in White Plains. The car has never been found. Julianne Guthrie, born January 6, 1971, was 6 years old. White, 4 feet tall, 55 pounds, brown hair, blue eyes. She had strawberry birthmarks on her chin and back. Timothy Patrick Guthrie Jr., born December 24, 1973, was 3. White, 3'3", 30 pounds, brown hair, blue eyes. Their mother, Leslie Ann Locke Guthrie, born August 25, 1947, was 29. She had grown up on Farragut Avenue in Hastings, New York, and attended Curry College in Massachusetts, but left to be with Timothy Sr. The marriage was under strain, and the couple had recently separated. Leslie was living with her mother in White Plains, while Timothy Sr. remained in Katona. Around 1:30 p.m., Timothy Sr. buckled Julie and Timmy into the Maverick's back seat and watched Leslie drive away. He later recalled, "I helped her put the kids in the car, and they drove off. And that was the last I saw them." Leslie's mother had lent her a pair of 2 small borrowed boots and given her $10 for gas, suggesting the car was low on fuel and Leslie had almost no money on her. The drive from Katona to White Plains should have taken approximately 45 minutes. They never arrived. Timothy Sr. did not report them missing until 6 p.m. the following day, February 6th, assuming Leslie had simply spent the night at her mother's house with the children. That 28-hour gap before anyone raised the alarm remains one of the most painful details of the case. The Bedford Town Police Department led the investigation. Detectives followed leads across the country and as far as Japan. Timothy Sr. hired a private investigator and spent personal funds searching. No clothes or personal belongings had been packed. No significant bank withdrawal was made. There was no indication Leslie had planned to start a new life elsewhere. She had reportedly been reading about cults and there was marital stress, but nothing that pointed to a deliberate departure with no preparation and no money. How does a mother with $10 in gas money and borrowed boots disappear with 2 children on a 30-mile drive home? The leading theory today is accidental. Investigators believe the white Maverick, with New York plate 636WNA, may have gone into one of the reservoirs in the area, Cross River, Muscoot, or Titticus, during what was an exceptionally harsh winter with icy roads and poor visibility. Early investigators initially dismissed this theory, noting the winter was severe enough that the ice on local waterways would not have broken under the weight of a vehicle. But modern cold case analysts have revisited the possibility, noting that not all sections of every reservoir would have been uniformly frozen. In February 2022, the 45th anniversary, Bedford Police and NCMEC released age-progressed images of Julie, Timothy Jr., and Leslie. A BC7 New York featured the case. In 2023, the ABC true crime series Missing on Hulu aired an episode on the family. In May 2024, the United Search Corps an Oregon-based nonprofit led by Doug Bishop that specializes in recovering submerged vehicles, traveled to Westchester County to search bodies of water for the Maverick. Bishop said, "Everything points to, in this case, it simply being an accident." No vehicle was located during the search. Timothy Guthrie Sr. remains alive as of 2024 coverage and has since left New York. Leslie's mother died in 1994. Her obituary still listed Leslie as surviving, because without a body or confirmed death, a mother could not bring herself to write it any other way. The case remains open with Bedford Town Police. NCMEC, case number 777216, is active. No confirmed discovery or resolution has been reported. A mother, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old drove away on a snowy afternoon 49 years ago. The car they were riding in has never been found. And the reservoir that may hold the answer has never given anything up. This was all from our side today. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video.